All right, looks like you got it there. Live streaming on Facebook. Good morning to everybody. Good afternoon to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. My name is Gregory Sneed, and we are glad you are here. Today, our guest is Scott Wu with IBank, and he will be sharing some information with us about the bank, the banking industry. Not much going on in the banking industry over the last week or so. Just
Slow week.
just as normal. Yeah, no news. So, no, seriously, yeah, he will be sharing some wonderful information about his adventures, what IBank is doing, and some flavor on the banking industry. Today is going to be a conversation as opposed to some guests come in and do a PowerPoint, do a full presentation. Today's just going to be really unstructured. And so we encourage you guys to ask questions. Please put them in the chat. And of course, please silence your phone. And so today is March 16th. Yesterday were the Ides of March. And so we're on the back end of the month and the final 2 weeks, if you will, on Q1. So if you got some Q1 goals, hopefully you're in the neighborhood of meeting those goals. My name is Gregory Sneed. Name of my company is Lifesaver Financial Services. I help my clients keep more of the money they make. And because I firmly believe that when you feel better about your money, you feel better about your life. Now, it's my pleasure and joy to introduce to the virtual stage the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Good morning, everyone. Glad to have you. Yes, slow week in banking, slow week and a whole bunch of stuff going on. So this is, Scott, we didn't know you were going to be perfectly timed for a great conversation this week. We want to welcome you to the community briefing. I am Crystal Mitchell, as Greg indicated. This platform was an inspiration of mine during the pandemic. I wanted to make sure that we as a community got firsthand information from our leaders and stakeholders. And I also thought it was very important that you met the leaders and stakeholders, the people that are sitting at the table, having conversations about our community. This way, it's kind of a network. You get to meet them, you get to reach out to them, you get to talk to them. Most of them are very open to providing you with contact information. I think it's very important that we stay connected. I want to thank all of you for coming out. This is awesome. We've been on the air now for 3 years and we are really growing. So we're going to ask you guys to go over to our YouTube channel. We have a goal, 1,000 subscribers, so that we can start monetizing the community briefing so that we can continue to bring you this great information and being able to expand our network. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars. This platform is powered and sponsored by Recycling Black Dollars and the BBA, the Black Business Association, for the reasons that I just spoke of, as well as I'm a business coach. I host another podcast called The Business Zone with Crystal and Gilbert. And my incredible team here, Mr. Gregory Sneed, Mr. Stephen Turner, who makes all the people happen, and he produces the platform and the show, and then Miss Robin Billups. We want to thank you for joining us, and we're going to ask you to help us grow by sharing us. So housekeeping, put your comments in the chat, and we will get to you. Our MC, Mr. Gregory Sneed, I am going to turn it back over to him. Stephen, you're coming in at the tail end? Okay, back to you, Greg.
Yes, and certainly have your friends and your family, your kids, have them log into the YouTube channel and hit subscribe. That'll help drive our numbers up. That'll help us tremendously. So tell a friend, even if they don't watch us, just tell them subscribe. So today we have Mr. Scott Wu, and he is head of IBank. It's a California infrastructure and economic development bank. And are you in Sacramento or San Francisco?
Sacramento.
Sacramento,
I live in San
there you
Francisco,
go.
But I work in Sacramento.
Say it again?
I live in San Francisco, but I work in Sacramento.
Yep, I saw both of them there, so I figured I'd ask. As my regular attendees know, sometimes we go from the top to the bottom, and other times from the bottom to the top. So I'm going to start with your beginning, and then lead the way up. So he went to some no-name schools we never heard of. So he went to Dartmouth College. Very good. Has his MBA from Harvard Business School. Anybody ever heard of Harvard? Yeah, a few people. Yeah, all right. He was an analyst with Morgan Stanley. He was with Montgomery Securities, the Bank of America Securities principal for a few years. FTV Capital, co-founder and general partner. Multiple organizations as an advisor and investor. Let's see. He was with Upstart Holdings, it's kicked on the other page, head of corporate development and managing director at that company. He was with the White House, and he was an advisor selected to the second class of White House Presidential Innovation Fellows and advised them on innovation, investing activities, and their portfolio organizations throughout the developing world. He was with, I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly, Omidyar?
Omidyar.
Omidyar. Okay, I knew I was going to mess that up. He led the firm's investment management, finance, and legal operations, and he was there for 3 years. And now since 2019, he has been with IBank. So as we were teasing at the front end, it's been a real quiet week in terms of banking. So no, really, we've had some pretty tumultuous things going on, and with the Silicon Valley and Credit Suisse and some other smaller banks. So please welcome to the virtual stage, Mr. Scott Wu.
Thanks, everyone, and thanks for having me here today. When I was told about this opportunity, I was like, oh, that sounds great to just have a conversation about my personal journey, about who IBank is and how we can help the community. And then, of course, you picked a great day in the midst of a global financial turmoil. And so I'd love to touch upon all of that. But why don't I start by talking about IBank? I imagine not many people have heard about IBank. I hadn't heard of it when the governor's office first reached out to me to have me consider this position. But the more I learned about IBank, the more I was impressed by the platform here. It's a government entity. It's in the governor's office. It's the state's only general purpose finance authority. And historically, it's been around since 1994, kind of a little bit behind the scenes, but it's always done great work. It's focused on infrastructure across the state. Basically, we have 3 core programs. The mission is to really provide jobs, well-paying jobs, to help increase the quality of life for all communities in California. And the programs historically have been issuing bonds, conduit bond issuances, primarily for infrastructure projects, for the water board, for pretty much all the museums across the state of California, and nonprofits and schools. That's one program, the bond program. The other is our municipal lending program, which helps to build roads and police stations and sewage plants and all across the state for small municipalities. And then we also house the state's Small Business Finance Center, which I'll talk more about today because I think that pertains to what this audience would be really interested in. But I'll come back to that. A couple of years ago, we launched the state's Climate Fund. And so we're building up something called the Climate Catalyst Revolving Loan Fund to finance commercial projects, really to come up with some solutions for the climate crisis. And then most recently, just a couple of months ago, we launched the state's venture capital program targeted at underserved populations of California. And I'll get more into greater depth on that as well. And so the Small Business Finance Center houses a couple of small business programs I think you'd all be interested in. It's been around since 1968, so a long time, but recently it's been turbocharged with some funding. Back after the Great Recession of 2008, we received $84 million to fund small business loan guarantees in that program. And surprisingly, with that $84 million in 2013, since 2013, we have supported nearly $2 billion of loans to small businesses. And so we're really proud of that result. More recently, after the COVID crisis, there was another infusion of federal dollars. And so this time around, the state is receiving $1.2 billion split between ourselves and the state treasurer's office to fund 4 programs for small businesses. This loan guarantee program, which will allocate a significant amount of funds to really turbocharge that program. The treasurer's office has a CalCap program for more microloans. They have a collateral support program for real estate and other asset purchases, and our venture capital program, as I mentioned. And so, in our loan guarantee program, if I look back since the 2013 period, actually even 10 years ago, the community of business owners that we lend to in the core small business loan guarantee program, typically kind of $500,000 average loans, but they can be up to $5 million guaranteed. That was under 3% Black business owners. Last year, we reached almost 10%. And so we're proud of that, and we want to continue on that path. When COVID happened, within a couple of days of the lockdown here in Sacramento, we got together with the governor's office and literally launched an emergency program with the governor's authority for emergency funding, which was our COVID microloan program. And that was targeted towards the most disadvantaged communities in partnership with about a dozen CDFIs throughout the state. And so we're very proud to say that at the end of that program, as it's coming to a conclusion, we've supported over 2,300 small businesses. And these are really very small micro businesses, on average, 5 employees, on average, loan sizes of around $50,000. 86% of them are minority business owners. They're female business owners. They're located in low to moderate income tracts. And so that really targeted a population that we felt was incredibly underserved, especially in the midst of a crisis. And so, the venture capital program we devised because federal funding became available. And as everybody on this call knows, California is the global headquarters of venture capital, right? And so the notion that we would need a public program to bring more dollars into venture capital in California seems like an anomaly, but there's a good reason. And our approach, I think, will testify to what we're trying to do with that. Because if you look at venture capital, and half of the nation's venture capital happens here in California, but it's incredibly insular and incredibly highly concentrated. It turns out that in the entire national asset management industry, right, and this is venture capital, private equity, and all kinds of mutual funds, all categories of assets, only 1.4% of assets under management are under institutions that are not white male. It's stunning. And so you think about, okay, well, venture capital really based here in the diverse Bay Area of California, venture capital being on the cutting edge of DEI, on the cutting edge of innovation and technology, and with a stated objective over the last 5 to 10 years of really wanting to diversify venture capital, that the results in venture capital would be substantially better. But it turns out that last year, when the numbers came in, of all investment partners at venture capital firms, only 3% were Black. Of all venture capital funded startups, there was only 1% of them with a Black founder. I mean, it's truly stunning that with the effort and the focus placed on this over the last decade, that these are the results that we're working with today, right? And so, as I mentioned, our loan guarantee program has increased from under 3% to 10% last year. Our COVID microloan program has 18% of Black recipients, Black business owner recipients. And in the venture capital market, we want to do something similar. We want to diversify those that get access to venture capital, because at the end of the day, that venture capital ecosystem is one of the greatest job creators. It's one of the greatest wealth creators in the history of the capital markets. And if segments of the population are locked out of that, that's not fair. It doesn't make sense. And it's shutting out creativity, innovation, all kinds of great business ideas that the entire public would benefit from, not just the wealthy elite who want their food delivered faster or whatnot, right? And so let's try to do this. And so we decided to take 200 million of the 1.2 billion from the federal government to start in December the state's venture capital program, really focused on underserved fund managers, underserved founders of startup companies, geographic regions of California. that don't see much venture capital, because everyone talks about, oh, California has way more venture capital than they need, but it all resides here in the Bay Area. There's a little bit in LA, a tiny amount in San Diego, but the rest of the state sees almost not a penny, right? And so let's try to diversify it throughout this big state. We have a big, diverse state. Let's move the capital around. Let's allocate the capital more effectively to create better diversity of innovations and solutions for better diversity of customers and needs. And so that's what we're trying to do here with our venture capital program. But as a whole, as an institution, we have to step back and say, well, why does this matter? And why is IBank in a position to help address the problem? And so, you know, when we look at IBank ourselves, we say, well, wait a minute, if we're trying to diversify the asset allocators in the venture capital industry or in the banking community, we have to start by looking inward. So how are we in diversity, right? And so when I got here, I started measuring our diversity stats right out of the gate, and we're a majority on our staff, female or minority, and our executive team is majority female or minority. And we have 7 financial development corporation partners that cover the entire state. One of them is a sponsor that's on the phone with us today. PCR is a fantastic partner of ours. And that cohort of the 7 financial development corporations that are our kind of eyes and ears out in the communities that they serve, they report to us every year, their staff demographics, and they're 73% minority. And when the decision makers for allocating assets are diverse, we know studies have shown that the recipients of that capital become more diverse. In fact, there was a Harvard and Virginia study that came out back in September that said that when assets are managed by diverse fund managers, they have a 3 to 4 times greater likelihood of allocating capital to diverse founders, entrepreneurs, and business owners. And so, you know, the one caveat to that is one concern that people have expressed in the past is, well, let the capital markets play out how they may, because maybe they're not allocating capital because those are riskier businesses. You know, maybe those cohort don't contribute as much returns or default at a higher rate. Well, we've proven that time and again to be false. In our loan guarantee program that takes on, you know, the risky small businesses that have the diversity statistics I've mentioned, historically, we have a default rate of around 1%. The studies have shown for venture capital that diverse owned firms, diverse venture capital partners, they actually outperform white male venture capital firms. And so that excuse rings a little bit hollow that, well, you know, we're taking too big a risk by allocating capital to that cohort, or it's, you know, they don't deliver the same returns, or they default at a higher rate. So we need to keep proving that year after year after year. And we have to start broadcasting that, because until you really address and go after some of these stereotypes, it continues to permeate, right? And so we decided that, hey, one place to start is to look inward, to look outward, look at our partners, and look at the cohorts that we're trying to fund. You know, we have about 110 participating lenders across the state of California that cover the entire state. And we have about 33 CDFIs. We want more CDFIs. I think we have half a dozen minority development institutions that work with us. We want to increase that to the 20 or 30 that exist and operate in the state. We want to reach those communities, but we can't do it on our own because we're not on the ground talking to customers the way many of you on the phone are. You are our connection point to the community to broadcast what we're here to provide, how we can do it. And we need these partnerships to reach the communities that we really want to serve. And so when I came on board here about 3.5 years ago, I very quickly instituted that our priorities as an organization, we're going to run all these programs, and we're going to keep adding more and more programs. We've added, you know, probably half a dozen programs in the last couple of years. Every one of them is going to have a concentration on well-paying jobs, on disadvantaged communities, and on climate solutions, in particular, climate equity and climate justice, climate solutions for disadvantaged communities. And so within every one of our program areas now, we have those initiatives and priorities, and each of our new programs have had that as central to its focus. And so I know I've said a lot right there. Let me take a breather and see if there's any questions or if anything you want to delve into before I maybe address that second topic that you posed, which is a little bit about my personal journey and how I came to this work.
Yeah, I think that's a wise choice. Let's get to the questions there. Let's see. First up is what vertical markets and industries dominate the VC lending?
Well, venture capital as a whole is dominated by the tech and life science industry, right? And that's where there's the greatest risk. That's where there's been the greatest return, but also the highest failure rates. And that's what attracts the venture capitalists. They're rolling the dice for big wins. They're not trying to get single digit, returns on their investment. They want 10X's on an investment, and they're willing to assume 80-90% failures in order to get that 1, 10 or 20 or 50X, right? And so where do you look for that? It's not the restaurant and grocery store and the dry cleaning, it's technology, it's biotech, it's revolutionary change, big ideas that could spread quickly without a lot of infrastructure, without a lot of employees. And you just look at the growth rates of some of the fastest growing success stories in American history, the Googles, the Facebooks, and it's stunning. And actually, if you look at their growth rates, nothing matches up, not even TikTok matches up to the growth rate of the recently launched ChatGPT, right? They reached 100 million users in a matter of months. Nobody's come close to that. And so those are the types of bets that attract venture capital dollars. And so we want a more diverse community to be able to access those dollars to make those same type of bets and to provide a more diverse community of startup founders to have a chance at coming up with those ideas themselves and building businesses on their own that have a chance to compete for those marketplaces, the marketplaces of the future.
Next question is, how does the state small business credit initiative benefit small and minority businesses?
Yeah, so the state's, the SSBCI, of which I mentioned earlier, we were recently awarded in this second go around following the COVID crisis, $1.2 billion for the state. All of that $1.2 billion is being funneled to the small business community of California through the 4 programs that I outlined. And so we're taking a very different tack about this. Some programs are, targeting larger average loan sizes. Others are much more micro loan. Some are, more equity focused, like the venture capital. Some are more collateral based lending, like the collateral support. And so we do that because we don't think there's a one size fit all. And for the bankers on the phone, you all know there's not a one size fit all product for the commercial marketplace, right? You have to have tailored, customizable, flexible instruments, and things change. Interest rate environments change. You have to adapt. The industry marketplaces change. You have to adapt. You have to be able to move quickly and follow your customer base to provide them what they need. Government programs aren't necessarily very good at that. They have long cycles to establish something, very long cycles to get them out and at scale, and then they don't like to modify them over long periods of time, right? Fortunately, IBank's not structured that way. We actually operate very effectively. We don't function off of annual general fund appropriations of the state. We operate off of our own profits, right? We operate by going to the capital markets and issuing bonds to raise capital to support our programs. We just issued a bond a few months ago. We issue bonds every year or two, and we have a AAA rating because we've done it very responsibly. And from that, we've been able to grow. And so a good testament to that, we are just about to cross $1 billion of revolving fund loans to infrastructure projects for municipalities since our founding. And so over the last 25 or so years, we've taken the original state appropriation to get us going of about $162 million, and we are about to recycle that over and over again over that period of time to support $1 billion of lending without a single default. Right. And so that's how we go about this. Everything we do is about leveraging the private capital markets. Everything we do is about looking for where there's a gap. We don't do grants. We don't really provide technical assistance either. We're a financial institution. We're a bank. We don't take deposits, but we're a bank in all other respects. We do a whole variety of lending, from $10,000 startup loans for a new business, all the way up to multi-billion-dollar bond offerings for high-speed rail, and everything in between, right? And so that enables a great amount of flexibility to see what the needs are in the marketplace at any given time, and design a program and get out at scale. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, when COVID happened, we got together internally with the governor's office, and we knew that there was a plethora of ideas, all trying to get access to that emergency funding. We got a small allocation. We got a $50 million allocation to launch a COVID microloan program. We launched that within days. On April 2nd of 2020, we launched that program when we were live with the help of our Financial Development Corporation partners. And we were out in the marketplace, serving thousands of small businesses, helping them survive when no other capital. I mean, the capital markets froze up for that type of lending, and we were able to help support that.
Next question is, so who were the diversity managers that will be stewarding the capital to the underserved, the different venture opportunities?
Yeah, so the venture program has 3 components, but essentially it's 2 approaches. One is we're going to select a basket of venture funds to invest in, somewhere between 20 and maybe 30 venture funds over the next 3 or so years. We will make commitments to their venture funds that they can draw upon to invest in businesses. And each of the venture funds have unique strategies of their own. Some target immigrant entrepreneurs, some target diverse entrepreneurs, some target the tech industry, the life science industry, the consumer industry. So they're free to target whatever they want, but we want the asset allocator themselves to represent underserved categories, and or their strategy as a fund has to be to target underrepresented and underserved founders, right? And then separately from that, we have a co-investment vehicle where we can make direct investments into companies, and that is with the same idea. It will be to a diverse founder or CEO led company, or we've added climate equity and climate justice type businesses that would be eligible for direct investment.
Thank you. Next question here is that someone said they talked with a few of the banks in the state loan guarantee program, and they seem to be lending out very few loans because the loan minimum, I think, was 1 million plus. Are there plans to have banks lend smaller amounts to, as the term says, spread the love more?
Yeah, so that's a misconception. There's not a $1 million minimum on loans. What might occur is we don't do any direct lending ourselves, right? Our loan guarantee program is, as it's described, it's a guarantee program of lending of commercial banks and lenders throughout the state. So these are private sector lenders, over 110 of them throughout the state. And we encourage them to make loans to small businesses by saying, we'll take on 80% of your risk. We'll cover 80% of your losses if you make that loan that you think might be marginal or too risky for you. And so what we try to stimulate is 2 things, right? We either risk share to get them to do the lending, or we try to drive down and incent them to drive down the cost of capital, lower interest rates. And so by those mechanisms, and so therefore, every lender has their own established criteria. Some lenders might say, hey, $1 million is our minimum, and therefore there are other lenders that business can go to. As I mentioned, we guarantee loans in our disaster program for the COVID microloans. The average is under 50,000. We do $10,000 loans. And so there's no $1 million minimum. There is a $5 million guarantee cap. So we'll only guarantee up to $5 million. The loans can be up to 20 million.
And Crystal, over to you. Guys, I'm going to be here, but I've got to got to log into a training to get credit for something. So got to
You're well
double to
trained.
him for a minute. Yeah. Crystal, you're on mute.
While Crystal's unmuting, I'd like to give the mic over to Rick. Rick, you got a question? Rick, we can't hear you.
Unmute, Rick.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. And yeah, Scott, I know that you were saying that the IBank is working similar to the SBA, right? In the guarantee program, would you say that's kind of comparable?
So the SBA has a program, their 7A program to lend to small businesses as well. We find our program really much more flexible. There are more categories of loans that we can issue. There's less process and requirements. And so we try to be faster, more flexible. Also, we don't have citizenship or immigration status requirements. And so we think we can hit a broader cohort. But you're right, there are two public programs all serving the small business community.
And I see that Colette is here and she represents PCR. Would she be our contact? I'm in LA, Canoga Park. Would she be the immediate contact?
Yes.
There's actually Mark, and there's actually Mark Robertson. Our
There we go. I didn't see you, Mark.
is there? Yeah. Hey, Rick.
Okay, it's just that, I went through another person I knew and they weren't really informed. And so, now I know who the people to talk to, because I work for a women's business organization. We have a database over 3,000 to 5,000. Our dear Crystal helps us out in that program. And so I am the finance business manager. I get a lot of opportunities with a lot of startups. And I've been following the IBank, when it was some of the questions here, the SB, and it took forever. And the money wasn't being dispersed. And I'll just let Stephen and everybody else, because some of the questions I have already going to be asked. So just a great opportunity to meet here. Stephen, thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
So
Rick.
Mark and his team at PCR can help guide you and navigate any small businesses to an appropriate lender. The other way to do it is just look at the list of participating lenders. So you can go to our website in our small business tab. There'll be a list of the 110 participating lenders and see if, hey, does your bank are they on the list? You can go to your bank and ask them why they're not on the list if they want to become a participating lender. Or
That was my question, because I did see that PCR was the only one. I did go to the IBank website, but thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Awesome. Kevin, I'm going to get to you in 1 second. Let me ask this question from Michael Banner. Michael indicates he is a client to SVB. We're so sorry, Michael, which has failed, and they did not have much diversity in their portfolio. How will Cambridge Associates reach the people on this call? And second part of that question, how will the 25 million SSBCI technical assistance funds be deployed?
Yeah, so three separate questions, right? So the $25 million technical assistance is currently still in the application process with US Treasury. It's going to be managed by our colleagues in the governor's office, the Office of Small Business Advocate. And so once they get their application approved for the process that they intend, we intend to leverage the SBDCs, the Small Business Development Centers of California, the iHub, whatever partners we can find that can reach the communities that we want to reach. But I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves, because that's managed by our colleagues in the Office of Small Business Advocate, and we're waiting for approval to go ahead on that. The question before that about Cambridge Associates and how they're going to vet. So Cambridge Associates was the third-party experts in venture capital that we hired to be the originators and the due diligence providers to the state to recommend the funds that we should invest in and the companies that we should invest in for venture capital, right? And so, they're out looking for the highest quality, the best prospect businesses run by underserved fund managers, underserved startup founders. And so that's their mandate. We've already started to get in a large inflow of prospects. They're vetting through them. And as this year progresses, we feel we'll be very active in both investing in funds and in companies through Cambridge Associates recommendations. The first question was, actually, remind me of the, I went backwards and so I
You know,
forgot the opening part.
the first question I think you answered. Then he asked about the 25 million, and then now he has his other question is: does the SBCI Capital have a certification form for social and economic disadvantaged individuals? And if so, where can we find such forms?
Yeah, so the US Treasury has the certification form for what they call SETI, socially and economically disadvantaged individual-owned businesses, right? And so it's a laundry list of demographic, ethnic, historical categories of business owners, plus it's overlaid on the CDFI investment areas, any business located in a CDFI investment area of the state, or any business that plans to operate in a CDFI investment area, or any owner that resides in a CDFI investment area. So it's a basket of demographic and ethnic characteristics and geographic characteristics to qualify as SETI. So they've actually put about $100 million of performance funds that we can win for the state of California if we meet their metric for the required SETI performance allocation of our activities. And California is set at about 49%. We have to hit 49% in order to win the extra $100 million award that would come to California. And we very much believe that we're going to blow that away. And so what happens is when a loan is issued through the SETI program, or I'm sorry, through the SSBCI program using federal funds, before closing, there will be a voluntary self-certification for that business owner to determine if they believe that they qualify as a SETI business owner.
So I know PCR is the CDFI. How many others are there? Isn't Vermont Slauson one? My understanding. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. Are they demographically or doing business in their own areas, or do you have to, I mean, you say we need more, so does that mean that they have to be geographically spread out through the state of California so that it can serve the entire state?
So we've done everything we can to make sure the entire state is well served. And so we have lenders that are operating statewide, and we have those that are operate specifically in their community. Nobody has an exclusivity on their geography. Anyone can operate anywhere to work with IBank and to tap into the US Treasury SSBCI funds. But what we know is everyone's good at operating within their own particular community. And so when we're targeting these more disadvantaged, these more diverse communities, we need lenders that reflect that. And that's when I talk about, yes, we do already serve the entire state. And every county in the state is covered by a participating lender. But we need more activity for those that know those difficult communities to establish trust, right? There's a large amount of distrust of the financial sector in disadvantaged communities, and rightly so. They've been taken advantage, predatory loans and pricing, security collateral that has taken away their asset, all kinds of difficult and challenging things that they've experienced. They need someone to trust. And they don't necessarily know IBank. We don't have people in the field talking to them and saying, hey, this is a public program from the state. We're here to help you. So we need these intermediaries, these partners that have that trusted relationship within their own communities to help broadcast the word, increase awareness, and develop that sense of trust that we can leverage off of.
Awesome. Kevin, you had your hand up. Welcome.
Welcome. First of all, I think it's great that you're here to provide the funds. I think it's great that we have CDFI to distribute and identify businesses. I've been around for a minute. I've earned this gray hair, and I've seen, similar programs and initiatives. What I want to know is when it comes to technology, you mentioned technology and life science. So we teamed, my organization is not a minority-based organization. Let me say that, but as president, I leverage my platform to try to include underserved communities, both brown and Black, and make it known that doing good is good business, and diversity equity and inclusion are profitable strategies. There are Karen Johnsons hidden all over the place. We just have to identify them, you know, like in Hidden Figures, right? So my point is when you say technology, specifically, what sub-vertical are you talking about? And when you say life science, you know, are you talking biotechnology? Is there a specific area that's going to give you that 10XX return? Because what I'd like to do is help you. I want to cut to the chase. We're doing a forum in July. I want to get some of these folks there. Maybe you consider attending as well. You know, I want to really get the rubber to the road and get some progress. And maybe, and the other thing is that there are a lot of kids out here focusing on technology majors in college, and then they talk about jobs. It's not going to turn us around as a community. I want to see business ownership. I know there are about 87 right now biotech companies that are looking for VC, but I don't think any of them are African-American. I'm just, you know, and I know that we have the intellectual horsepower to make that happen, but we need people like you and more platforms like this to reach a broader audience, to draw them out of the shadows, to listen and plan and execute.
Well, Kevin, thank you. And I'm happy to participate on any venue where you think there's an audience that wants to hear about this. I'm always happy to broadcast and display what we're here to do to help. And so I look forward to that. The one thing that I want to make sure is clear is we don't target the tech industry or the life science industry, right? The venture capital industry does. And we're going to select funds that are run by a diverse set of fund managers, and they can go pursue whichever industry sector they choose. There's going to be a high proportion of them that go after the tech industry and life science industry. When I look at our loan guarantee programs and our small business credit enhancements and financings, those are not tech oriented at all. Those are actually mom and pop businesses. They tend to be in the services, financial services, retail services, business services. And so they tend to be, small business shop, service shops. And so, we want to support all industry sectors, and we partner up with as diverse of a lending cohort and as diverse of a venture capital cohort as we can find, so they select their customer base in a more broad-based fashion.
Awesome, awesome. Scott, the tech industry, well, especially in California, seems to be doing some major adjustment with the massive layoffs and that's going on in San Francisco. And in the whole Silicon Valley. Now we have what's going on with the banking industry. What are we looking at far as from a banking economic situation? Are they positioning themselves to be better investable, I guess, because I do know they have astronomical salaries and they're overemployed and overpaid.
Yes, well said. So first of all, if I was any type of a prognosticator of what's going to happen next, I should be spending my time in Vegas. but all I can say is I've lived through several of these cycles, right? I was, involved in Wall Street when the '87 crash happened, right? The flash crash of October of 1987. I was in venture capital when the 2000 tech bubble burst, right? I was a venture capitalist at the time. I was in the financial industry during the 2008 great financial crisis, right? And so I've fortunately been around to witness several of those. This time it's a little bit different. I mean, keep in mind, I think you pointed to two things: what's going on in the tech industry with layoffs and kind of recalibration, and then separately, what's going on since last week with the consumer banking crisis that's in the middle of being resolved. But they relate to one another, right? Because the bank that went down, Silicon Valley Bank, was the largest lender to the tech and life science community. And they were the largest banker for the venture capital and private equity industry, right? And so there's some, element of commonality in that. But having said that, there's not a fundamental dislocation of asset values this time around compared to the 2008 crisis, where the entire global financial sector was sitting on overmarked assets. This time, the overmarked assets of Silicon Valley Bank were risk-free securities. They were US Treasuries, right? Unfortunately, they were buying long, but they had depositors that were withdrawing short, right? And so it was a mismatch in duration. But having said that, because such a big prominent player like that has exited the market, so suddenly that entire community's banking service opportunity set declines. And it happened at a time where the entire venture capital tech bubble was starting to deflate. And so, but having, if you look back over longer periods of time, last year was still a pretty spectacular year, even though it didn't come close to comparing to the year before, which was the all-time best year in venture capital history. So if you look at the long-term trend lines, we're still, somewhere at or above the long-term trend line. But since it's such a deflation from the best years in the industry's history, it feels like it's awful. It will get worse. I don't know how much worse or how much longer before it hits the bottom point and starts turning back up again. But we do know that the entire startup community is finding it much more challenging to raise capital, to pursue their ideas. Some might argue that recalibration is healthy, because for too many years, there was too much easy free money chasing ideas that had no chance of survival. So there needed to be a washing out and recalibration, because it's not healthy when there's a bubble either, that everything gets a chance to spend endless amounts of money for poor ideas that will ultimately fail. And so somewhere, it goes back and forth. I've seen it over the decades. It'll find an equilibrium, and then it'll get enthusiastic, and then it'll get dismal, but the long-term trend line is still an upward right slope. And so we should all be encouraged that if you're thinking about this long-term, it's going to continue forward. There's still a ton of capital available in the venture community that's yet to be invested. And, right now, everyone's kind of holding their breath and stepping back and waiting to see how this dislocation in the banking market plays out. But then they're going to be back making investments again. Banks will be back out looking to find great customers. The threshold for what's considered a great customer might get tightened. Likely there might be regulatory requirements that tighten the risk appetite of banks, and there will be, a bit of necessary fear in the community to say, hey, we can't take unlimited risk. We need to better manage our interest rate volatility, and we need to better manage our risk portfolio and not be so over-concentrated like Silicon Valley Bank was on one or two industries.
I am absolutely in agreement with you. I mean, we've been having, banks have been, Wells Fargo's been in the news all the time, and it seems like they slap them on the wrist and they continue to go on and doing what they're doing. So this might be definitely a deterrent. I remember I worked in the .com bubble when it burst, and I actually worked for an internet a .com that blew through $12 million in 8 months. And I was in the accounting department, so I know exactly where the money was going, and it was poor management. Yeah. Bottom line, it was just poor management. They had no business acumen. They had a concept, an idea. VC provided the money for them, and they went have at it. And so, yeah, I am in agreement that there has to be some regulatory. They seem to have gotten out of control again, yeah. And so it put in a space. You have been awesome. Thank you so much for being so candid with us. I don't know if anyone else has any more questions. Please feel free to ask. Scott, will you put your contact information in the chat? I think sure. There's a couple of agencies here that would like to have some chit chat with you. Michael Banner indicates that we should join the state treasurer, Fiona Ma, the CPA at the 23rd Urban Place Marketplace. There's a link there for you. So join us. I believe we're going to be at that marketplace as well, right, Stephen? Yeah. Okay. So Stephen, you want to, or Greg, you want to give us some more insight on that, or Stephen?
Well, the Urban Land Institute. I mean, Michael's here, so he can chat on it. But we're going to be participating. A number of speakers. I think Tiffany Haddish was just added as a keynote speaker, as well as Fiona Ma. And there's looks to be about 10 or 12 people who are going to be on a panel. So we'll be there representing community briefing and recycling Black dollars. And that is on Wednesday, the 21st, I think, 21st or 22nd of March.
Yeah, Michael, you wanna
Michael, please.
Oh, well, glad to participate in this. It's a very informative meeting today. So the Urban Marketplace has been going on for 23 years. That's something I started in 2000, and it was started around this kind of discussion about how do we get capital into the communities which we work and play in. And it's real estate related. This year, it's the second time we've had the state treasurer be the keynote speaker. The first one was when Phil Angelides, and I think it was 2000, it's close to 20 years ago, when he did it. And we usually get an audience of about 200, 250 people. And you'll have a keynote with the state treasurer, representation from the state treasurer's office, the CPCFA, which manages part of the SSBCI fund. They will have people there. There'll be probably about 18, 20 different roundtables, which you can talk to folks, and the community briefing will be there as one of those round tables so you can find out how they interact. And the theme is connect to capital, which I don't know how it gets more appropriate than where we are today. And we're sponsored by several big banks. So JP Morgan Chase is the sponsor, PNC is the sponsor, Bank of California is the sponsor. They will be in the room. So I encourage you all, if you can make it, come on out. It's been a great party. I've been throwing for 23 years.
All right, so there's the link there, guys. Make sure you sign up. Great information, Scott. That's a lot of the comments in the chat, as well as we have Colette. She's going to give us a little update on the grant, where we are in that. I think somebody was asking me, was that closed? Can they still apply?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Scott, for that great overview of the IBank. And know that PCR is here to help those with the IBank as well, and that we can actually help other banks that may not be familiar. So if you run into banks that are not familiar, that's one of the things that we've been going out, is making sure that they know how to register, how to apply, how the program works. So just let us know if you do have banks that should participate in the program. We want to be able to help them to do that as well. So very quickly, today is just on the LA County grant. So thank you, Crystal, for just a few minutes and for asking. Very quickly, there are 2 or 3 primary grants, and there are some other grants actually in the works. The key one is the micro business grant. The first one that was in phase 1 was extended to March 25th. That covers LA City and LA County. $2,500 for businesses under $50,000 in revenue. There is a phase 2 that goes until May 2nd, but that is only for LA County only. LA County only. And so you have to go through I'll put the link on here, but you really have to understand the unique things about the grant, but it is laid out on the site. Then there's also the small business grants of $20,000 for businesses between 100,000 to 2 million. You may know people, and actually I want to make sure you guys tell all your micro businesses, if they haven't applied, hurry up, phase 1, because that includes LA. So make sure that this is the grant to apply for and to finish the process. And we're seeing people that are starting the process and are falling out. And so get the money, let's help them. And we're here to help. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Also for the nonprofit sector, that is May 20th. And then for the larger nonprofits, also May 20th, that's over $1 million. So just want to mention the role of the SBDC. So SBDC is helping people to understand how to pull documents, preparing for the application process. Multiple languages are available. So if English is not the first language, there are a variety of languages that are available for help. And then this is the key here is how to prepare. All of this stuff is online. I will grab this and drop it in, but the EOG has a lot of great information. And if you still have questions, there's someone you can speak with live there, the EOG customer support line. If it's way deep, then it'll come back to our center. But if they can answer a question really quickly for you, then that's a great place to go. And then Lendistry, who is managing the actual grant distribution, is they have a tech support center as well this time where people can call and get information on the status and what's going on. We're going to be doing one-on-one advising for this grant. I saw Joseph Duncan, who works as one of our SBDC advisors. We're hoping he'll be able to participate. He helped us with another round that we did where we're going to be doing one-on-one to help people to fill out the application. And it was really helpful. Some people said, oh, I could have done that on my own, but it was great to get help. And so, you know, our community, Scott talked about distrust. Yes, this is real money. Yes, you will be able to get it once you apply, and all of the information that's asked for, we can assist you with that. So this is going to be with the Compton Farmers Market on the 1st of April. Gives people plenty of time. Then there's also that Salon and Spa Relief Fund program that is still open, $2,500 for salons or up to $5,000 for $1 million salons. We have a couple of workshops. We are continuing to work with Grow with Google in a variety of areas, and they also want to support capital. So we're going to be covering business financing and overcoming objections, actually, in an upcoming workshop with Grow with Google. We continue to have a focus on financial fitness. So please, let's have everybody learn more about money. Got to know about money. Crystal mentioned it, Scott mentioned it, got to understand money. And our community can't talk about money. So we wanted people to learn the basics. Let's get there. We have cash flow remaining for this month and how to become loan ready. But these are ongoing workshops in terms of financial fitness. Let's get ready. And then from handyman to contract, if you guys know that handyman been working a lot and they could become a contractor and make some more money and do other contracts, we can show you how to do that. We also have a restaurant academy. That's it. I'm going to drop the EOG grant into the chat, and that's it for me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Colette. I have a couple of clients that are in the hair salon industry, and I've been trying to find out if that was still available for them. So I do appreciate that. So I can get that to my clients. They're looking for that growth as well. And then I have a couple of tech young ladies that have some amazing new tech products coming out, and they need some assistance. And they've been in business for 3 years or 4 years and have pretty significant revenue. So thank you. I'm going to refer them over to you. And if you can help them. Also, you guys can see we have a wealth of individuals here on this platform that we need to be connecting with and networking with. So Joseph Duncan, he can help you. You know, you guys need to reach out. You need to put your contact information in the chat because it's so important. We can't do this on our own. It's going to require all of us to change the economics of us, the minority, the Black and the brown. And so let's stop working in silos. Let's work together to make some change. This morning, I saw something out of San Francisco. Scott, you may have heard this about the reparations and what's going on there with the 360,000. I think San Francisco's talking about 5 million. But then I also heard something about them wanting to re-erect the Free Men's Bank. Did you hear that this morning as well?
No, I have not heard that, but I spoke in the annual conference just a few months back.
Yeah, so what Colette is saying, if that is going to happen in the state of California, us knowing how to manage the money is going to be vitally important, that we just don't take the money. And if that is going to really happen, we have to make sure we're reinvesting it for our families, because this is a legacy that and generational wealth that we all have been talking about. So the more you understand about money, and I guess those of us that are out here having these platforms, we need to be really intentional about that, because I just can see what will happen to that when that comes about. Stephen, you want to tell us who's here next week?
Yes. And again, Scott, on behalf of the Black Business Association, Striking Black Dollars, and a host of contributors, thank you so much for your time and effort. But before I talk about next week's guest, I'd like Mark Robinson, who's one of our financial sponsors and who's instrumental in bringing you here today, share a few words, Mark.
Well, thank you, Stephen, for that surprise
I put it in the chat, though.
opportunity. I just want to thank Scott for being here. As you can see, Scott has diversity. He wears diversity on his sleeve. He's passionate about it. He wants to make sure that resources flow to all communities throughout the state of California. And I think that came over loud and clear in his comments. And so I just want to say thank you to Scott. I can say that the State Loan Guarantee Program, as he mentioned, has been around since 1968. It's bounced around from different departments within the state of California, but I can say that since we've been with IBank, the program has never done better. So, and that's a tribute to the leadership of Scott and his team. And we are so proud to partner with IBank and the team in Sacramento. So thank you again.
Right. And if you like the information that Scott has presented today, wait to next week. Next week, we have Maya Gishman, an attorney at law. We'll talk about the essential elements in the legal field that you need to know in order to go in business. Also, on today's call, we have two of our future speakers. We have Deborah Hunter, who will be speaking, as well as Tia Delaney. So go to the website, www.community.com, look at our calendar of events, as well as Joseph Duncan. How can I forget you, a coming speaker? So we have a plethora, an array of different speakers, and we thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Scott, awesome. Please come back. You've given us a lot of information and hopefully calm some nerves on the future.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun, and this is really important work. So
definitely.
Yeah. So we want to thank you, Rick. Thank you for coming by. I teach a workshop, actually a 12-step program with the New Women's Business Center. I think they're an awesome organization for women. They go to leaps and bounds to really help women launch businesses in the Black and the Brown community. I have such a great time. I've been teaching with them for 3 years now. And I have developed a relationship with many of the students that come in through the portal, through the classes. And so I want to thank them personally for all the great work that they do. Rick, you want to say something real quick?
Crystal, yes, thank you. I'm your greatest supporter. You don't know that, but I am now going to make a requirement because I'm going to be putting one of my program on the website. And if they don't do the 12 steps, or now we're doing the entrepreneurial mindset, it's a must, because I have had clients from multi-million dollars to startups, and my multi-million-dollar clients, very humble, have said, we have learned something, because just the mind mapping is an amazing tool to use. And I taught your classes. I mean, I taught live, and I totally don't tell anybody, but I copied everything you said. And I was mini Crystal for a couple of for some time. So anyways, thank you so much. I appreciate what you do, Crystal, and we got to talk. We got to promote a little bit more what Community Briefing is doing, because I'm gonna maybe I'll make that a requirement for a lot of the
a lot of black
owners, small business owners, that I try to get them to that. There's a lot of resources out there, but we need to network a little bit better.
Okay, well, I will give you a call. And Rick, I even heard that Rick took he copied and became mini me, including my stories. So I'd love to see how he became me in my stories.
So, when he said he was our biggest supporter, I thought a big donation was coming. I was like, yeah.
Let me see. Oh,
go to our website.
I can't get into my pocket there, Gregory. I'm sorry. I'll find something.
All right,
so we're going to ask you all
to promote you guys. Stephen and I, we had a meeting, and we got to figure out
that will be awesome. we want you to go over to our YouTube channel and please hit that subscribe button, guys. We want to monetize and continue to bring the greatness and the amazing people here. But we also want, I think someone said that we need to get a broader outreach. I'd like to see hundreds of people here every Thursday at 11 o'clock, because I think we're bringing some really high caliber speakers to the platform to talk about what's going on. If you're not in the know, you are really lost in this process. And with the culture wars that's going on in this country, it's so important that we hear that information from people that really understand us and really want to help us and not hurt us. So that's so important. Kane, thank you for coming up. Selena, thank you. Richard, everyone that came. Karen, please come back, but go over to the YouTube, the Community Briefing YouTube channel, and hit that subscribe button, guys. I don't have time enough to go pull it up, but I will put it in the chat. This show will be, and all our shows are actually archived on our YouTube channel. So go over there and I'll make sure that that information is provided in our blast. So we want to thank you guys. Have a great weekend. I think it's raining again today. So stay dry, stay off of the areas that's mudslide. I hear La Brea is shut down on one side going north. So be safe out there, and we will see you back here on this Bat channel at 11 o'clock next week. Greg? Take us out.
Thank you again for joining the community briefing. Again, we look to see you. Scott, thank you so much. And y'all come back now here.
All righty. Bye-bye, guys.
Hey, Ted, I got you covered, Ted.